On the Vince Everett Ellison Show, we're going to talk about why the black community has such a hatred for Clarence Thomas and why they dislike him and how it's completely illogical. I'm going to explain it all to you today on the Vince Everett Ellison Show. All right, let's get this thing started. You know, man, Clarence Thomas is one of the most honorable men. Well, he probably is the most honorable man in American government. He's been on the Supreme Court since 1991. That is a long time. October 22nd, 1991. And for some reason, and Clarence Thomas is a black man, just in case y'all don't know, he's a Supreme Court justice. For some reason, the black community, and being black himself is interesting because the black community just doesn't like Clarence Thomas. And when you ask black people why they don't like Clarence Thomas, they usually can't tell you why. But they don't like him. Some people say, well, could it be because Clarence Thomas is married to a white woman? I don't see how that makes any sense because Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is the other black person on the Supreme Court, she's married to a white man. And they're like, they just love her dirty draws. Singing and dancing and sliding when she got nominated to the Supreme Court. So if they don't dislike Ketanji for marrying a white man, they can't dislike Clarence Thomas for having a white wife. Well, you know, Clarence Thomas wasn't caught in a hotel room smoking crack with a woman that wasn't his wife. That wasn't Clarence Thomas. That's Marion Barry. They love to call Marion Barry. They re-elected him. Clarence Thomas wasn't a drug dealer on the street, rabble-rousing, causing people to fight and lie and acting a fool and looking like a big fat hip-hop hustler with a outdated hairdo. No, that's Al Sharpton. Calling people, black folks, the N-word, calling black white folks out of their name. That's Sharpton. Clarence Thomas doesn't have outside children, and was caught on camera calling black people the N-word and calling Jewish people Hamis and shaking down companies and corporations and stealing money, and one of his children got kicked out of Congress for being corrupt. No, that's Jesse Jackson. Clarence Thomas wasn't having orgies and hoe chasing, drunk. No, that's Martin Luther King. Oh, but y'all love them. I mean, Clarence Thomas wasn't involved in the Diddy freak-offs. Drinking, fighting, hair-raising, on the television smoking. Clarence Thomas is a Supreme Court justice. Do you know how difficult it is to get rid of a Supreme Court justice? You got to impeach him like you impeach the President of the United States of America. The guy is not he's not subjected to being voted out of office. The Supreme Court justice is the closest thing to being a king in the United States government. That's how powerful Clarence Thomas is. Nevertheless, most Negroes, you give them that type of power, they're going to be at the club every night. They're going to be like Kamala Harris, twerking and drinking and dancing and acting a fool because you can't get rid of them, man. You have to go before the Senate, the House and the Senate to get him kicked out. They got to vote. About 66 senators have to vote to kick out a Supreme Court justice. I'm trying to think. I need to do my research, see if one has ever been impeached. Because right now I can't think of it. Now, usually when you give a black person in America that type of power, like, you know, the rest of them, Jesse Jackson, Martin Luther King, all the rest of them, I mean, you know, They just went crazy. Clarence Thomas has been married to one wife. He ain't caught him running no women, drunk, fighting, raising hell, nothing. Why do black people hate Clarence Thomas? Well, when you look at how he votes on the court, you say, well, that's because Clarence Thomas vote crazy on the Supreme Court. That's why we hate him. No, that's not true. Most black people are conservative when it comes down to abortion. Clarence Thomas is pro-life. He believes in protecting the unborn. You're not going to get Clarence Thomas since he voted to overturn Roe v. Wade because he believes that life is life. Life is their conception, and that every life is precious. So most black people believe that too. The Democrats believe in aborting babies up to the 9th month, up until the time of birth and after birth. The perinatal abortion, yeah. The Born Alive bill, they all voted against it. Kill the baby, let it down the table, yes. So black people, Clarence Thomas, straight on abortion. School choice. Yeah, most black people support school choice. Clarence Thomas supports school choice. If that school is not educating your child, let that child go to a school that will educate it. Not Democrats. Keep that child in that ghetto school. Keep them locked down in that ghetto school. We don't care if they're educating them or not. Don't let them leave. Clarence Thomas says they have a right to go to a school that will educate them, private, public, parochial. Black people believe in that. They believe in they should have a right to practice their religion anywhere they want to, anytime they see fit, on their jobs, while they're riding down the road, no matter what they're doing. If they want to stop and do a Holy Ghost dance and praise God, they should be able to do so. Clarence Thomas believes the same thing. He believes that if you want your child to have a Christian education or a Jewish education or a Catholic education, that child should have it. That money that goes to the government is your money. And that you decide, the parent decides how that child should be educated, not the government. Clarence Thomas is smart enough to understand that communist countries say the government should educate their population. In America, in a free country, we believe that the people educate themselves and then they educate their government. He doesn't believe in busing. Clarence Thomas voted against busing. Black people didn't want busing. They didn't want buses picking up their children at 5 o'clock in the morning, taking them 3 hours across the city to go to a white school where they're going to be mistreated. Clarence Thomas said, why do you believe that because something is mostly black, that it's mostly bad? Fix the schools where they are. Doesn't make a black child smarter because he's sitting beside a white child. I hope most of y'all agree with that. LGBTQ. Clarence Thomas believes like I believe. You ain't got a right to force these things on anybody. You don't have a right to have a company or a workforce and you trying to get widgets made and you got a guy that comes on the job and he wants to wear rouge and makeup and high heel shoes and make everybody in your company feel uncomfortable and you got to hire him, made to hire him. Tell him, no, you can work here, but you got to conform. I want to come in and I want to use the women's bathroom and I want to come in and I want to be a man in a skirt with lipstick on and a mustache and high heel. And Clarence Thomas said, you can't do that, man. Do that when you get home and go in the streets. On this job, you got to conform. No. Most of us agree with that too. Clarence Thomas believed that you should be able to use your gun to defend yourself and your property. Man, I was on the road about 2-3 weeks ago. I took a road trip all the way from Maryland to Memphis, Tennessee with my children and my grandchildren. Me and them in the car together. Everything that was going on that trip was my responsibility, from getting them there to getting them back to paying for everything and protecting them. And do you know what? In America, United States of America, I couldn't even carry a gun to protect my children and grandchildren on the road. You know why? Because some states have gun laws that allow me to carry, and some states do not. And if you get caught in the wrong state with that gun in your car, you can go to jail. So I'm a free man. Pay all my taxes. Never did no time in jail. None of that. And every highwayman on that road knew that if I had a flat or if I had a problem, based upon the law, I could not defend my children. I could not defend my grandchildren on that road. Why? Because the liberals and Democrats out there, low down dirty, I can't stand them. Oh yeah, but every illegal can have one. Every crook can have one. So in order for me to protect my family, I have to break the law. Yeah, I have to break the law. And if I get caught with a gun while traveling to protect my children and my grandchildren, if the police catch me, I go to jail. Why? Because I want to protect myself. Clarence Thomas disagrees with that. He says that as a law-abiding citizen, I should be able to go anywhere I want to, and I have to defend myself and my family and my property, and I shouldn't have to apologize for it or fear my government if I do so. Oh, about the Democrats. Oh, no. Only the government has the right to use force. Y'all, that's a Marxist construct. Only the government has a right to use force. And sure enough, only the government has a right to use deadly force. If the government does not protect you, consider yourself unprotected. Clarence Thomas does not agree with that. Neither do most black people. Nevertheless, black people dislike Clarence Thomas. On the border, Clarence Thomas, like me and you, he believes the border should be secure. You supposed to, if a joker come in here, he's supposed to come in legally. Not illegal. Not illegal. Clarence Thomas believes that they got this birthright citizenship thing in front of the Supreme Court right now. It's going to be interesting. That case is going to be pretty interesting because for the past 100 years, the Supreme Court has ruled that the 14th Amendment is explicit when it says that if you're born in the United States of America, you're a citizen of the United States of America. Now the question becomes, since we've had all of these anchor babies that have been born over here over the past few decades, the question is, when they wrote the 14th Amendment back in 1868, did it mean what, did they intend for it to be used for what it is being used for now? Clarence Thomas, like me, we believe that the 14th Amendment was designed to do one thing and one thing only, make sure that all black people who had been enslaved at that time, who are now freedmen, are free, and that their state and the federal government has to make sure that they get equal protection under the law. Equal protection under the law. So if you're born here, because nobody had a birth certificate, none of that stuff was going on back then. Shoot, man. How can you prove you were born in the United States of America? So the states, Mississippi and Alabama and all these Democrats, we're going to try to use certain tactics to make sure that black people couldn't get their rights by saying they weren't citizens, this and that and the other. So the 14th Amendment just said, we're going to kill all that. If you were born in the United States of America, you're a citizen. And you are a citizen of the state in which you reside. Now, is that clear enough for you, Confederate Democrats? So now we've got a bunch of illegals that have said, hey, we can get 9 months pregnant if we make it across the border and have a baby. That baby is a citizen, and they're reluctant to kick a citizen out of the country. So we can hold on to that baby in the United States of America. And Trump is saying, and Clarence Thomas believes, no. The 14th Amendment, that was not the reason why it was passed, even though it says at that time that if you're born in the United States of America, you're a citizen of the United States of America. Let me give an example. You're driving in your car, right? We all know that the stop lights and the stop signs are designed to make sure the traffic flows properly and to keep people safe. We know that, okay? But suppose your wife is having a baby, and you got to get her to the hospital because, she's bleeding. And you running stop signs and you are running traffic lights. When the police pull you over and say, hey, man, you speeding, you say, look, man, I got to get my wife to the hospital. You better follow me. If he gives you a ticket, I guarantee you when you go to the court and say, Your Honor, this is why I was running those lights, he's going to say, let him go. You know why? Because this is not what the lights and the stop signs were intended for. They weren't intended to allow a woman to die and bleed out while giving birth. This is what the courts are going to say when it comes to the 14th Amendment. Was this the intent? to allow illegals to come over here and drop their children in holler, I'm a citizen now, and you can't do anything to them. That's going to be the question. Clarence Thomas agrees with me, and I think he agrees with the rest of y'all, that it was not intended to be that way. It was designed for the freedmen and women to have access to the courts, to have access to the law, and to be protected under the Constitution. That was what the 14th Amendment was for. All right. I digressed a little bit, but let me continue. So why do black people, I know why liberals say Clarence Thomas, white liberals, because of everything I just said. I know why they dislike him. I mean, they want to kill every baby they can find. They hate school choice. They want to make sure that the teacher unions get money so that they can keep educating these children to be Marxists and LGBTQ and all that type of foolishness. I mean, these jokers want to take your guns away so they can control you. They want God out of the public square. They want illegals coming across the border. Clarence Thomas even voted against Aberville versus Hodges, the gay marriage thing, the same-sex marriage thing. Yeah. Yeah, when the Supreme Court had to vote on Aberville to say that, is marriage between just one man and one woman, or can, same-sex couples get married? Clarence Thomas voted marriage is between one man and one woman. I agree with him. I think most black people do too. So the question becomes, we know why white liberals hate Clarence Thomas. That makes perfect sense to me. The question becomes, why do black people hate Clarence Thomas? And I'm going to tell you why black people hate Clarence Thomas, because for a while, I didn't like him for the same reason. You know why? We were told to. We were told to dislike him. By the black intelligentsia, by the Iron Triangle. I remember it well, y'all. I got a little age on me. I remember 1991. Thurgood Marshall had just died. Thurgood was an icon. All black folks loved Thurgood Marshall. And then George H.W. Bush, who was a Republican, decided that we're going to put Clarence Thomas in there to take George H.W. Bush. And boy, Negroes went crazy. You would have thought, because George H.W. Bush could have just said, I'm going to put another white man on the court. I mean, we always talk about color, right? Color. Now, Thurgood Marshall was damn near white. Real light-skinned brother. Northerner. Clarence Thomas lived a real black life, y'all. That brother was born down in Georgia. Clarence Thomas' daddy left him when he was a little boy. He didn't see his daddy but once in his life. He was raised by his grandfather. He grew up poor. They called him a Geechee. He followed the Gullahs down in Savannah. He was smart, though. His granddad was smart enough not to send him to public school, send him to Catholic school. Clarence ended up graduating from Yale Law School. He grinded. But Lord have mercy, when George W. Bush, a Republican, nominated another black Republican to be on the court, the white liberals activated the Iron Triangle to tell black people that Negro is no good. And Clarence Thomas was as confused as he could be. Yes, he could be. Clarence is like, man, I thought you guys would be happy that a black man, because you guys are always talking about black, will be on the court. What is this you got against me? You know what it was? Clarence wasn't a liberal. Thurgood Marshall was a liberal. Clarence Thomas was not a liberal. And every black Democrat was a Marxist liberal, and Clarence Thomas was not. Every black Democrat was an anti-Christian bigot. Every black Democrat was a pervert, liar, psychopath, and anti-Christian bigot, and Clarence Thomas was not. And he had to go. They told him he had to go. He had to go. Now, your history books ain't going to tell you this. I was sitting there watching it. This is 1991, man. God, 1991. 1991, that's 34 years ago. Wow, that's a long time ago. And I'm sitting there as a young man, I was a correctional officer watching this thing, and I was not nearly as astute in politics as I am now. That's why I can't be too mad at y'all. Like y'all, I was younger. I was paying attention to a lot of other things other than politics. Young family, working every day, going to church on Sunday. And back then, they didn't have what we have now. They didn't have nobody out there like VinceEverettEllison on YouTube, because YouTube didn't even exist, telling you what the heck was going on out there. They didn't even have Fox News back then or Newsmax. They had CNN, ABC, CBS. It was a legacy media, man. And them suckers was liberal and lying all the time. Oh, they was horrible. So George H.W. Bush gets up in there. He drops Clarence Thomas. And Clarence is sailing through because Clarence had a good record. Clarence had caused no problems nowhere. Everything's going good for Clarence. Clarence is about to get confirmed. FBI had conducted a background search on Clarence Thomas. They always do that. They vet them. But Clarence had been a federal judge before, so he had been vetted. You know, people knew who Clarence Thomas was. Clarence was smart. He was a brainiac. He was one of the few black conservatives up there. But Clarence was solid. So the FBI had done a background check on Clarence. They had all the information. And before Clarence is voted on by the whole Senate, they have to take him to the Judiciary Committee. At the time, the Judiciary Committee, guess who the chairman of the Judiciary Committee was? Joe Biden. Yeah. I think he had dementia then, crazy bad. I'm sorry. Anyway, so Joe Biden was over the Judiciary Committee, and they couldn't get anything on Clarence. Clarence getting ready to slide through, man. And lordy, something broke. In the FBI report that only the Judiciary Committee had, it was top secret. Nobody could see it but the Judiciary Committee. It was top secret. Well, somebody on the Judiciary Committee, maybe Joe Biden, leaked the report to the press. And in the report was a little part about Anita Hill talking about what some of the things Clarence Thomas had said while they were working together at the EEOC. Some of the stuff was just benign stuff. Like, you know, it was stuff that Clarence Thomas denied. You know, graphic stuff, a lot of trash talk. I'm not going to repeat it here. And the FBI had looked at it and said, well, it's no big thing. Nothing really happened. Anita said nothing happened. So we're not going to make a big deal out of that. And the Judiciary Committee was not going to make a big deal out of it. So what did they do? Somebody on the Judiciary Committee, probably Ted Kennedy or Joe Biden, released that to the press. Anita Hill was a professor down at the University of Oklahoma. She was quiet. She hadn't done anything. She was just, she's watching things. Next thing you know, all hell broke loose. Anita looks up, reporters all over the place want to say, what went on between you and Clarence Thomas? When did Clarence Thomas do this? When did Clarence Thomas do that? And the university president came down and said, Anita, we got to address this thing. These reporters are everywhere. So Anita comes out and gives her a statement. Man, next thing you know, they have subpoenaed Anita Hill to come on, Capitol Hill, to give her statement. And they held up the vote on Clarence Thomas. And you couldn't get to Washington for the cameras.
And Anita Hill was called to testify.
Can you tell the committee what was the most embarrassing of all the incidences that you have alleged?
I think the one that was the most embarrassing was his discussion of pornography involving these women with large breasts. And
man, it was prime time television. I remember it. And I'm sitting there saying, what the... Again, I didn't like Clarence Thomas at the time because I was a Democrat. I told you I was a Democrat. I had brain damage at one time, but God healed me, okay? So at the time I'm watching this, and you got Jesse Jackson and all the blackity blacks and the old, corrupt iron triangle, the black preacher, black politician, black civil rights workers, all of them just hating on Clarence Thomas. So, I'm part of the herd mentality. I want to be part of the crew. I'm down for the struggle, man. So I'm saying, yeah, get him. But it just something wasn't right about this to me. So Anita Hill gets on there and, boy, she trashes Clarence Thomas. Boy, she talk about Clarence Thomas like he a dog. And everybody just enjoying it. Black woman talking about a black man. Boy, I said, man, look at this right here. So she had done Clarence in. I mean, Clarence was a dead man, D-E-A-D. If Clarence Thomas looked at himself in the mirror in that morning after Anita Hill got finished, he was looking at a dead man. He was done. And so they told Clarence, Clarence, you need to step down. It's over. Clarence, I ain't going nowhere. I'm going to defend myself. And then Clarence Thomas came up and started talking. And I never will forget what Clarence Thomas said. He said, all this is a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks who doesn't kowtow to the social order.
Should never occur in America. This is a case in which this sleaze, this dirt, was searched for by staffers of members of this committee, was then leaked to the media, and this committee and this body validated it and displayed it at prime time over our entire nation. How would any member on this committee, any person in this room, or any person in this country would like sleaze said about him or her in this fashion, or this dirt dredged up, and this gossip and these lies displayed in this manner? How would any person like it? The Supreme Court is not worth it. No job is worth it. I'm not here for that. I'm here for my name, my family, my life, and my integrity. I think something is dreadfully wrong with this country when any person in this free country would be subjected to this. This is not a closed room. There was an FBI investigation. This is not an opportunity to talk about difficult matters privately or in a closed environment. This is a circus. It's a national disgrace. And from my standpoint, as a black American, as far as I'm concerned, it is a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks who in any way deign to think for themselves, to do for themselves, to have different ideas. And it is a message that unless you kowtow to an old order, this is what will happen to you. You will be lynched, destroyed, caricatured by a committee of the U.S. Senate rather than hung from a tree.
And I said, wow. A high-tech lynching. Y'all trying to kill me because I won't do what y'all say. Y'all trying to take me out and destroy me because I won't bow to you. I will not resign. I will not pull back my nomination. I'd rather die. And I said to myself, like the old Keith Sweat song, something, 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 something just ain't right. And Clarence Thomas left. And Clarence Thomas saved himself that day. And in my mind, he became a legend because he confronted these racists and confronted what they tried to do to him. And he told the world what it was. And it's the same thing I've gone through in my life. You know, high-tech lynching. Clarence is nicer than I am, though. Clarence is a Supreme Court justice. He's a Harvard guy. I mean, he's a Yale guy. He doesn't have to get into the fights with these guys because they can't touch him. Me, I'm a throat cutter. I relish the fight. That's why I want nobody to fight me. I come every day with a Uzi looking for him. When I worked in the penitentiary, man, I walked into the prison every day and said, there's 2 bad MFs in the world. I'm one and I'm looking for the other. I ain't scared of these punks. Clarence will have to fight these people in public. He's a Supreme Court justice. I don't blame him. He's on a high plane. So I remember this so very well. This is when I knew something was wrong, when I knew it. I had the day off. And I kind of forgotten that the vote for Clarence Thomas was coming up that day. I wasn't into things like I am now. And I remember I was in Sears. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I was walking through, and they have their television department where you have the televisions and you can choose the ones you want to buy. And they had them all on, and they all was covering the hearing of the vote, wall to wall. And I remember I walked in there and I saw they were getting ready to vote on Clarence Thomas. I stopped. I said, "Oh," and I started watching. And a crowd of people had gathered to watch the vote. Now this is Columbia, South Carolina. Okay, they had the Confederate flag up. They've been telling me white folks racist, want to kill all black folks, hate them. Right, so I'm sitting there watching this, and this crowd of people came up, black and white, watching it. And I remember when Clarence Thomas was confirmed, I saw this crew of white men who were supposed to hate black people because they were black say, "Good," and they all walked off in different directions. And I said, well, that was interesting. Because from what I had been told, white folks didn't want to see no black people on Supreme Court. You don't get much blacker than Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas, y'all, is hated by black people because the Iron Triangle and a bunch of white liberals told them to be hated, told them to hate him. When I sat down and talked to black people about Clarence Thomas, I can't stand Clarence Thomas. And I said, why? Well, he's Republican. I started saying, well, how do you stand on these issues? Well, Clarence Thomas does too. How you stand on this? Clarence Thomas does too. Now tell me why you hate him. And then they started getting this glassy-eyed look in their face. Because there's no rational reason for it except for one thing they've been told to. And he's a Republican. As I've told people before, black people have a Stockholm syndrome and a cognitive dissonance when it comes down to the Democratic Party. They will stay with this party no matter what it does to them, and they will do whatever the masters say do. They are still under complete control. They hate this man for no reason because the weak-minded are told to do it. There's no rationality behind it. And you ought to be ashamed of yourself. To call yourself a man and despise and hate somebody because somebody else told you to and you can't rationalize it. The man agrees with you on almost everything. He's lived his life in an exemplary way. You support the worst people in our society, whether it be Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, Maxine Waters, the mayor of Washington, D.C., who was smoking crack in his hotel room and got reelected. All these jack-leg, no-good, lying black preachers. All these ghetto-dwelling politicians. And here you got Clarence Thomas. Never got caught in anything. In 34 years. They tried to prop up charges on him, so he took private plane junkets to go fish or something. Just digging. Can't find nothing on the man. Kamala Harris in the club twerking. Hanging out with Meg Thee Stallion and Offset. Jamal Brown out there got 4 or 5 outside children while he's preaching. Jesse Jackson, outside children, N-word. Calling white folks out of their name, calling Jews out of their name. Al Sharpton, same thing. Got him on tape. Doing a drug deal with mafia guys. FBI snitch. Tawana Brawley, Duke LaCrosse, George Floyd, you name it, they've done it. And you love them, but here comes Clarence Thomas. A man that you agree with almost everything, about everything, lived an exemplary life, and you dislike him just because he's a Republican. You know what? You deserve everything that happens to you. The Democratic Party is a sick, sick party, and they're dying. Black fatigue is a real thing in America. America's tired. They're tired. all the complaining, all the belly aching, never saying thank you. Elevating the worst people in our society to be heroes, from George Floyd to Trayvon Martin to Sharpton. Yeah, okay. Just like I said, stay where you are. I'm gonna tell Trump to give you DEI, give you $1,000 a month, give you a trailer to live in, give you 40s to drink, let them put all the drugs they want, illegals down in your community, put a barbed wire fence around you, and let you kill yourselves, while the rest of us do great things. Or you can decide to be a rational, Christian, God-fearing American and judge people on their merit and not because they got a D or R before their name. And I'm going to keep bringing this to you, and I'm going to keep riding you because I'm here to wake you up. I hope I did you some good today. So join me again for another edition of the Vince Everett Ellison Show. All right, friends, Vince Everett Ellison is here. I want you to go to my website, and on my website, you're going to see a lot of great stuff, man. You're going to see that we got t-shirts, we got caps, you got my books, my documentaries, you got all kinds of stuff on VinceSpeaksTruth.com. Go there. We're dropping new t-shirts, we're dropping new merchandise. My new book, The End of Tolerance, is there. The End of Tolerance. Make sure you get it. Make it #1. If you got my first 3, get The End of Tolerance. It's just as good. And it's telling us we have to end our tolerance with these leftists, these Democrats. We can no longer allow them to sexually groom our children. We can no longer allow them to castrate little boys and call them little girls, run God out of the public square, take away our guns, take away our sovereignty. No longer allow it. So go on VinceSpeaksTruth.com. That is VinceSpeaksTruth.com. Hit merchandise. You'll see the t-shirts. You'll see the caps. You'll see the books. You'll see the documentaries. You'll see it all. And let's keep this ball rolling. God bless you.